Marcus Thompson stood behind the spotless desk of Sterling Motors, his tie perfectly straight and his shoes shined to a mirror glow. Every morning he arrived early to polish the cars, straighten brochures, and practice his speech in the reflection of the showroom windows. He liked order. He liked respect. He believed in showing people what success looked like, in how he dressed and in how he spoke. He believed he earned every dollar he made, and he judged anyone else who did not share his view. Today, just like any other day, he was ready to prove his worth. The showroom lights glowed softly over rows of gleaming sedans and SUVs. Sales posters hung on the walls with catchy slogans about power and luxury. The air smelled faintly of leather, seats in fresh polish. Marcus paced a little behind the desk, adjusting the angle of a brochure stand. He was proud of his spot at Sterling. He was proud of his title, top salesman. He smiled to himself as he imagined the numbers he would post today. He believed no one could beat him. Just after 10, the bell above the front door rang. Marcus looked up, expecting another routine visitor. Instead, a man walked in who stood out. He wore a simple but clean suit, one that fit perfectly without any brand name shining at him. His hat sat straight on his head, his shoes were tidy, and his shoulders held a quiet confidence. Marcus looked him over with thinly veiled suspicion. He saw a black man enter his space, and his heart thumped with an uneasy beat that he tried to hide. The man approached. He nodded politely at the receptionist, then made his way to Marcus's desk. "Good morning," he said in a calm, even voice. His name was Andre Johnson. He spoke with respect in his tone. Marcus forced a polite smile. He cleared his throat and said, "Hello. How can I help you today?" He hoped his voice sounded warm, though inside he felt cold. Andre held up a small notebook. He opened it to a page where he had scribbled a list, his budget, his must-haves, his questions. He said, "I'm looking at this model," and pointed to a sleek black sedan with tinted windows. His sentences were smooth and direct. He wanted details: fuel economy, safety ratings, service plans. He wanted to know about warranty and financing options. He asked for a test drive schedule. He spoke like a man used to making big decisions, but he spoke so politely no one could imagine the power behind his calm tone. Marcus looked at him and felt a surge of anger he did not want to admit. He saw a man who did not match the image he had in his mind of a serious buyer. He saw someone who did not belong in his world. He raised his chin and pointed at the car. "We don't give test drives to people like you without a big deposit," he said. His voice was low, stern. He looked at Andre's suit and assumed cheap fabric. He looked at Andre's calm face and heard his own prejudice shout louder. Andre blinked in surprise. He hesitated only a moment before he smiled and said, "A deposit is fine. Tell me how much you need." His voice stayed gentle. One of the other salesmen on the floor stopped straightening brochures to watch. The receptionist sat up, sensing something going wrong. A few customers turned their heads. The showroom felt smaller all of a sudden, as if the walls had closed in around Marcus and his boat of anger. Marcus's pride surged. He decided to punish Andre for daring to cross his line. He stepped from behind the desk without warning. He reached out and slapped Andre's cheek hard. The sound echoed in the quiet showroom like a gunshot. Andre's head snapped to the side. A thin thread of red appeared at the corner of his mouth. His notebook fell from his hand with a soft thud. For a brief moment, everyone froze, unsure what to do next. Andre stood very still. His hand went up to touch his cheek, then moved to dab at the blood that seeped onto his finger. He looked at Marcus with steady eyes that did not burn with rage or fear. Instead, they held a calm sadness, said nothing for a heartbeat. Then he reached down, picked up his notebook, and gently closed it. His voice was low but clear. "Thank you for the warm welcome." He took a small step back and brushed a fleck of blood from his lip. He straightened his back, looked around at the stunned faces of the customers and staff, and offered a small nod, as if he was acknowledging their shock. He turned on his heel and walked toward the door as if nothing great had happened. Rushed forward, but Andre held up a hand to stop her.
Us.
He never broke his calm. Marcus stood frozen where he slapped him. His hands still hovered in the air. His eyes were wide, not with remorse, but fear. He did not know what had just happened. He saw the blood at the corner of Andre's mouth and felt the weight of all his actions crash down on him. The other salesman, who had watched silently, snapped out of shock and took a step forward, but Marcus held up one hand to stop him. He was too stunned to move. Andre reached the door. He turned one last time. His voice stayed calm as he said, "Have a good day," and without another word, he stepped out into the bright sun. The bell chimed behind him, and the door closed. The showroom felt quiet, except for the low hum of the air conditioner. No one moved. No one spoke. After a moment, the receptionist finally gasped, "Marcus, what did you do?" She began to take out her phone, maybe to call someone. Marcus shook his head, his face pale, muttered, I'm sorry." But his words felt hollow to everyone there. The other salesman backed away, shaking his head, his eyes on the closed door. The customers who had been browsing stepped back to look at the cars, as if trying to pretend they had not seen what happened. The posters on the wall seemed to mock Marcus now. They promised power and luxury, but power without respect was empty. Marcus felt the shame settle in his chest. He thought of the top numbers he had wanted to post today, thought of how he had prided himself on his success. Now that success felt small. He touched his cheek as if he expected to feel a slap there. He looked at his hand, his skin unmarked. The only mark was on Andre, the man he had injured out of prejudice. He sank into a chair behind his desk. His mind raced. He thought, "I have to make this right." But he did not know how. He did not know who Andre was or where he had gone. All he knew was that he had crossed a line he could not uncross. Outside, Andre made his way down the sidewalk with steady steps. He did not call for a taxi. He did not rush. He simply walked. The wind lifted, his coat just a little. He touched his phone in his pocket, but he did not call anyone yet. He did not run. He did not curse. He walked with the calm of someone who stood for more than one moment in a showroom. He stood for his own worth. By the time Marcus lifted his head from the chair, the showroom had returned to business as usual. The cars still shone, the lights still glowed. A new customer approached the desk, asking for help. Marcus looked up at the question in her eyes and forced a polite smile. He opened his mouth to speak, but the words stuck. He closed his mouth again. He nodded and gestured to the cars, but he felt like a broken man. He wondered if anyone remembered Andre's calm words. "Thank you for the warm welcome." He touched another brochure, but his hand shook. He knew this was no ordinary day. He knew his reputation, his success, and his pride had all been built on a fragile ego. And he knew that, somewhere out there, Andre Johnson walked away with more dignity than anyone in that showroom could ever claim. The day wore on, but Marcus could not focus. He kept glancing at the showroom door, waiting for Andre to come back. He kept imagining that calm face, that gentle apology, that steady walk into the sun. He had read in a sales book that respect was earned. He had thought he earned it by selling cars. Now, he saw that respect was more than a word. It was a choice. And today, he had chosen wrong. The sky was dark when Andre reached the quiet street where his true office hid behind a plain brick wall. Streetlights glowed weakly on the wet pavement. He stepped from the taxi and paused for a moment, listening. The city's noise was distant. Here just the hum of a lone car and a faint siren far away. He looked up at a small metal door set into the wall. He tapped a secret code on the keypad. The door clicked open, and he slipped inside. A narrow stairway led down into silence. At the bottom, a heavy door with no windows swung open when he pressed a hidden switch. Andre entered a room lit by low lamps. A long table stood in the center, surrounded by chairs. On one wall, a map of the city was pinned, red markers showing areas he watched carefully. On the opposite wall, shelves held neat rows of files, each one about a person or place he cared about or feared. He walked to a bench by the wall and dropped his briefcase. From inside, he pulled off his suit jacket and loosened his tie. Under the neat clothes, he wore simple black pants and a sturdy shirt. He peeled off his dress shirt to reveal a fitted vest where he tucked a slim flashlight and a toolkit. His shoes were still the same polished ones from the showroom, but he swapped them for boots that fit his feet like old friends. With every piece of clothing he changed, he became someone else. The calm, polite Andre Johnson was fading, and Dante Rousseau, the leader of the Crimson Serpents, was taking shape. He ran a hand over his shaved head, remembering the man he had been before he learned to hide in plain sight. He stood straight, shoulders back, mind clear. He was ready. In the corner of the room, a secure terminal blinked on. Dante sat down and typed a code. A list of messages appeared, short texts, photos, maps. His crew had already begun to buzz. Each message had a name: Luca, Maria, Jamal, each one a trusted member of his circle. He scrolled through the notes. They asked for orders. They waited for his word. He paused, thinking back to what happened that afternoon. The thin line of red at his lip, the echoing slap, the shocked faces, the silent walk out the door. He remembered how easy it felt to stand tall, even after being hit. Then he remembered who he was. He turned back to the screen and tapped Luca's name. Secure call line opened. "Luca," he said, his voice low. "Are we all in place?" "Yes, boss," Luca replied through the speaker. "Team is ready." "We have eyes on him." "Good," Dante said. "I want a clear message. No harm to anyone else. We do this once, and he understands." He ended the call and leaned back. The Crimsons were a tight group. They had grown from friends in a tough neighborhood. Boys who had no chance except to band together. They started by protecting their block from thieves who preyed on neighbors. They grew up fast, learned to plan, and never let fear rule them. Dante had built his reputation one promise at a time: protect the weak, punish the unfair, never break your word. He remembered the night he first took charge. He still felt the weight of their trust. He remembered how he spoke that day, promising a better path. He had been Andre Johnson then, a younger man who wanted to keep his friends safe. He used his calm voice to guide them. He chose the name Dante Rousseau because he wanted a name that meant strength and mystery. The streets learned to respect that name. Over the years, they became more than a small band. They became a force. They never harmed the innocent, only those who hurt others. They had rules: no needless violence, no children involved, no betrayal. Dante enforced those rules with an even hand. His crew knew he rewarded loyalty and punished betrayal. That was why they followed him without question. Now, Marcus Thompson had broken the first rule. He had disrespected a man without cause. Dante felt that as a blow to his own honor, and to the honor of every man who followed the same code. Could not let it stand. But he also knew that respect was more powerful than fear. A lesson that ends in blood can fade into anger and revenge. A lesson that ends in understanding could change a heart forever. He stood and walked to the table. He picked up a small wooden box and opened it. Inside lay a simple black mask, like a plain face with no name. He placed it over his face, hiding his features, put on gloves. He checked his watch. It was exactly 6 o'clock. Perfect time. He tapped his vest pocket and pulled out a small recorder, pressed play. A voice clear as day spoke. "Tonight, we remind him that respect is earned, not assumed." He listened, then hit stop. That would be his message for Marcus. It was short, but it carried weight. No threats, just truth. A light on the wall blinked. It meant Luca was at the door. Dante moved to greet him. Luca stepped in, nodding quietly. Behind him came 3 others, each one carrying small cases. Maria, with her calm eyes and quick hands. Jamal, tall and steady. Rosa, silent but sharp. They closed the door behind them and stood ready. Dante removed the mask and looked at them, spoke softly but firmly. "He's a salesman who thinks his world is all that matters. He doesn't know who we are. Tonight we show him." He held up the recorder. "We'll leave this at his door. Let him hear the words and see the proof that respect is not free." Maria nodded. "We'll place it where he can't miss it. No one will get hurt." Jamal spoke next. "After that, we're out. No trace." Rosa added, "He'll understand." Dante felt the old fire in his chest. The same fire that had driven him to build the serpents in the first place. But this time, it burned with purpose, not anger. He had no desire for revenge. He only wanted just to sand an apology. He believed Marcus would learn more from being humbled than from being harmed. He turned back to the map on the wall. He traced a line with his finger from their hideout to Sterling Motors. A straight line through quiet streets. They would move swiftly, in pairs. Luca and Rosa would place the recorder. Maria and Jamal would protect them from any unexpected trouble. Dante would watch from a distance, ready to act only if needed. He gave each team member a small earpiece. Stay in touch. Keep it quiet. He put on his mask again and nodded. They slipped into the stairway and then into the street, moving like shadows. Dante watched them go, then closed the heavy door. He stood alone in the dim room, thinking of the man who had dared to slap him. He smiled, but it was not a happy smile. It was the smile of a man who trusted his people and believed that honor could be restored with a single act. He set his jaw. He whispered to himself, "Respect is earned." He pressed a button on the wall, cutting power to the lamps. Darkness swallowed the room, but he could still see every line on the map in his mind. Outside, the city lights twinkled. Somewhere. Down the road, Sterling Motors waited. Marcus Thompson still sat behind his polished desk, replaying that moment again and again. He did not know that by nightfall, his world would shift in a way he could not ignore. He did not know the man he had slapped was coming for him not with weapons but with the weight of truth. And so the pieces moved into place. The Crimson Serpents acted not as criminals, but as keepers of a code older than the city itself. Under the mask of Dante Russo, Andre led them in a quiet mission to remind a man blinded by his own pride that every person deserves respect. And tonight, Marcus Thompson would learn that lesson in a way he would never forget. Marcus arrived at Sterling Motors before sunrise. The sky was still gray, and the street lamps blinked off one by one as dawn crept in. He parked in his usual spot, but something made him stop and look around. The calm of the morning felt strange, as if the world was holding its breath. Stepped out of his car and walked toward the showroom door. That's when he saw it. The black sedan he had polished the day before now had its windows shattered. Tiny glass fragments glinted on the hood and the pavement. His heart pounded so loudly he thought it might burst. He froze for a moment, staring at the mess. A piece of paper was taped to the hood with simple black tape. He felt a cold hand grip his chest. Carefully, he bent down and peeled back the tape. On the paper, in neat but bold handwriting, were the words, "Apologize or lose more than metal." No signature, no name. Just that one line. Marcus's fingers trembled as he let go of the note. He wanted to rip it up, burn it, forget he ever saw it. Instead, he backed away and straightened, wiping sweat from his brow inside the showroom. Lights were still off. Receptionist's chair sat empty, and the other salesman's brochures lay untouched. Marcus inhaled deeply, trying to steady himself. He reached for the doorknob and hesitated. Would it open? He turned it and pushed. The door swung in with a soft creak. He stepped over the threshold, leaving the smashed car behind. He walked to his desk and sat down heavily. His fingers brushed over the polished wood surface. He remembered how proud he felt yesterday morning. He remembered the confidence that filled him when he arrived early and glowed under those showroom lights. Now his chest felt tight, and the usual hum of the fluorescent bulbs made him jump. He glanced at the note again, taped to the hood of the car. Apologize or lose more than metal. What did that mean? He felt a wave of shame wash over him, mixed with fear. Who would do something like this? Who would send such a message? He reached for his phone and opened the voicemail app. His manager, Rebecca, had left a message before 7 a.m. Marcus. "I know something happened. Call me when you can." His thumb hovered over the call button, but he hesitated. He did not want to explain, did not want to admit he had slapped a customer. He swallowed hard and tapped the message. Rebecca's voice crackled through the speaker. "Marcus, are you okay? I saw what you did on the camera. We need to talk." His mind reeled. The security cameras. Of course she saw it. Every movement had been recorded. He felt exposed and small. He pressed the replay button and shut his eyes. He did not want to watch himself commit that act. Instead, he deleted the message. He sat back and closed his eyes. Maybe if he waited long enough, none of this would matter. He could pretend nothing had happened. But then the phone buzzed again. A text from an unknown number. "We're already here." His breath caught in his throat. He looked around the empty showroom as if expecting someone to step out from behind. The cars. The hum of the air conditioner sounded too loud. He blinked, trying to focus. He typed a quick reply. "Who is this?" He hit send. Waited. No answer came. He rubbed his eyes and forced himself to stand. He had to get through the day. He had calls to make, clients to meet. He had quotas. He had pride. He headed to the coffee machine, hoping a strong drink might help him think straight. The machine hissed and bubble popped. He poured a cup and stared at the dark liquid. He sipped. It tasted bitter and cold in his stomach. Customers began to trickle in, drawn by the shine of the new car models and the promise of deals. But Marcus barely heard them. He stood at his desk, tapping his pen on the surface. The receptionist tried to greet him, but he only nodded. When one customer asked for information on the red sports car, Marcus's voice shook as he answered. The customer frowned and moved on to another salesman. Marcus watched them walk away, feeling his reputation crumble. Rebecca appeared in the doorway of his office. She wore her usual crisp suit and carried a folder. Her face was kind but firm. "Marcus, we need to discuss what happened." He looked at her, his cheeks burning. He opened his mouth to speak, but no words came out. Instead, he pointed to the shattered windows. "Look, it's them," he said quietly. "They did this." He did not want to admit he had earned it. Rebecca stepped closer and laid the folder on his desk. "The police haven't come by yet," she said. "I've contacted security. They'll review the footage. I'll help you craft a statement." Marcus shook his head. He did not want a statement. He wanted to disappear. "I can't explain," he whispered. She took a breath, as if gathering strength. "You hit him first." Her voice was gentle but unyielding. "You assaulted a customer. That's on you." Marcus closed his eyes, wishing he could rewind time. He remembered that calm face, the gentle tone, the words "thank you for the warm welcome." He remembered how Andre walked away, refusing to retaliate. Now he saw Andre had not forgotten. Hours dragged on. Marcus tried to work, but his mind kept drifting to the note on his car. He envisioned the midnight mission. He guessed at the bullets that had been sent his way, warnings placed by a man who demanded respect. He did not know the man's name. He did not know his power. All he knew was that he was at the mercy of someone out there. He left the showroom briefly for lunch, hoping to clear his head. He walked to a nearby park bench, cradling his coffee. The breeze was cool on his face. Children ran past on the grass, laughing. Birds chirped in the trees. For a moment, he felt peace. Then his phone buzzed again. "Tonight we meet. No time, no place." Just those 3 words. He stared at the screen until the words blurred. He put the phone away and closed his eyes, thought of his life before today, how clean and certain it felt. Now he lived on a tightrope between fear and regret. Back at the dealership, he found his inbox flooded with memos and emails. HR wanted a statement. Legal wanted details. Marketing wanted to know if a PR spin was possible. He opened each message, read the polite language, and deleted them. He could not face them. He could not face anyone. He wanted the night to come and go like any other night. He wanted someone else to solve this. When evening approached, the showroom closed early. Rebecca called a staff meeting. Salesmen gathered in the conference room. She stood before them, her posture steady. "I know this has been a strange day," she said. "We'll work through this. We will cooperate with the investigation. Please, stay professional." She looked at Marcus, and when their eyes met, he saw disappointment in hers. He wanted to apologize, but nothing came out. Instead, he nodded and shuffled out of the room. The parking lot was empty except for a few cars. Marcus walked to his vehicle, his steps heavy. He unlocked the door, slid in, and closed it. He started the engine, but he did not move. He held the steering wheel and stared at nothing. He thought of the unknown person waiting for him tonight. He thought of the power of a single slap and of the lesson coming his way. He drove home in silence. The city lights passed through the windshield like distant stars. He entered his apartment building and took the elevator to the 3rd floor. The hallway lights flickered as he walked down the tiled corridor. He reached his door and unlocked it. Inside, the room was neat and empty. No one to greet him, no comfort to wrap him in. He set his keys on the table and sank onto the sofa. He stared at the blank wall. He thought of his childhood, how he learned to value respect, hard work, and success. He thought of the man he had become, thought of the man he had slapped. The quiet confidence, the calm words, the unbroken dignity. He felt small. He felt ashamed. He stood and walked to the window, looking out at the city below. The lights were bright, but they offered no warmth. He thought about a simple apology, 2 words he could say to make some of this go away, but he knew it would not be enough. He knew the lesson coming tonight would be more than words. He knew he had to be ready. He went to his bedroom and changed into simple clothes, jeans, and a plain shirt. He looked at himself in the mirror. His face was tired. His eyes were haunted. He took a deep breath and murmured, "I'm ready." He picked up his phone and typed a message, "I apologize. I'm sorry." He hesitated, then hit send. He watched the screen, but no reply came. He switched off the lights and sat on the edge of his bed. He closed his eyes, trying to will the hours to pass. Sleep would not come. His mind raced with fear of the unknown. He wondered where the meeting would be, how it would happen, what would be demanded of him. He felt like a kid waiting for punishment, but also a man waiting for a chance to learn and change. He lay back and stared at the ceiling. The words echoed in his head: apologize or lose more than metal. He thought of everything he had built, his career, his reputation, his pride. He thought of how quickly it could crumble. He thought of Andre or Dante or whoever waited for him. In the dark, he thought of respect. He thought of his mistake. And he thought of the lesson he still needed to learn. The lights stayed off. The night offered no comfort. Marcus closed his eyes and waited for morning or for the man who would teach him what respect truly meant. Marcus sat alone in his dark apartment, the shadows of the night wrapping around him like a cloak. His mind raced with every moment since the slap. He replayed Andre's calm walk out of the showroom. He thought of the smashed car windows. Felt a cold knot of dread in his stomach. He knew tonight would end one way or another, and he did not know if he could face it. He checked his watch, 9:45. He'd received a text earlier that said only, "Come alone." No, please. No time, just that. He shuffled through his thoughts, trying to make sense of it. He thought of calling Rebecca, but he paused. She was a friend and his boss, but this was his mess to fix. He needed to take responsibility. He took a deep breath, stood, and grabbed his coat. He stepped into the hallway of his building. The lights flickered above him. The hum of the elevator. Doors rose and fell as it moved between floors. He waited in silence until the doors slid open. He stepped inside. The car was empty. He pressed the button for the lobby. The doors closed. He felt the rumble under his feet as he moved downward. When he reached the lobby, the doors opened to a hush. The night air flowed in through the front doors. He paused at the glass and looked out. The street was empty. He could see his reflection. In the glass, his shirt was plain, his jeans dark. His hair was neat, but mussed at the sides. He looked tired and scared. He squared his shoulders and stepped out into the night. He walked down the street, his footsteps echoing on the pavement. The city was quiet, but he sensed eyes watching him. Cars passed by with headlights that glinted in his eyes, and he ducked into doorways to let them pass. He checked his phone again. No new messages. He felt alone, but he reminded himself he had to be brave. After 10 minutes, he reached an old warehouse. The building was worn, its paint chipped, and its windows clouded. A single yellow light shone over a door that sat at the corner. He guessed this was the place. He took a shallow breath, stepped forward, and pushed the door. It opened with a rough creak. Inside, the warehouse was large and empty. Moonlight poured in through high windows, casting long beams that danced across dusty wooden floors. The air was cool and smelled of rust and dry wood. Marcus's heart pounded as he stepped. Inside, he could hear his own breath. He saw a circle of chairs in the center of the room. Each chair faced inward. In the middle of the circle sat a small wooden table. On the table lay a recorder, the same one he had heard Andre speak into. His pulse raced. He thought of Dante's calm words. Tonight we remind him that respect is earned, not assumed. He swallowed hard and took another step forward. A door at the far end of the circle opened, and 4 figures stepped out of the shadows. They wore plain clothes and masks. Masked faces gave no clue to who they were. 2 of them held flashlights that cut lines through the dark, and 2 held small cases like lunchboxes. They moved with silent purpose, placing themselves around the circle. Marcus stopped a few feet from the chairs. The masked figures took no aggressive action. They stood still, watching him. For a moment he thought they would rush him. He thought they would hit him. He thought they might kill him. But they did not. The silence was thick, and his chest felt tight. One of the masked figures, a tall one, stepped forward and spoke. The voice was smooth and calm, but it came through a slight electronic filter. Marcus could not tell if it was male or female. The voice said, "Sit down." It was not a command. It was a statement. Marcus felt his legs shake and he sank into one of the chairs. The chair creaked under his weight. He looked down at the recorder on the table. His body felt like lead. He tried to speak, but his voice caught in his throat. The masked figure spoke again. "You know why you're here?" The voice carried no anger, only fact. Marcus nodded, cleared his throat. "Yes," he said. His voice was low. "I understand." He hated how small he sounded. The tall figure paused, then said, "Good." The voice sounded pleased. Another figure stepped forward and placed a small lamp on the table. The lamp's soft glow fell on the recorder. Its red light blinked. The tall figure reached out and hit play. Andre's calm voice filled the space. "Respect is earned, not assumed." The words echoed in the empty room. Marcus closed his eyes and lowered his head. He felt tears rise. He thought of all the arrogance he had carried into that showroom. He thought of the customers he had ignored, the colleagues he had looked down on. He thought of the man he had slapped. He had not thought about that man's life or his pride. He had only thought of himself. He looked up at the masked figures. The tall figure leaned forward and said, "You slapped me because of your prejudice. You thought you were safe behind your desk." The figure's voice softened, but it stayed firm. "Do you know who I am?" Marcus closed his eyes. He thought he recognized that calm voice. It was Andre's voice, but he dared not say it. He felt ashamed. He shook his head. "No," he whispered. The tall figure removed the mask. For the first time, Marcus saw his face. It was Andre. He wore simple black clothes, his hair shaved close, his eyes calm but intense. Marcus stared, speechless. Andre spoke softly. "You don't know me, but I've watched you. You think success is your own doing? You think people owe you respect? You slapped me, but you did not see what I carry inside." He paused. "I am Dante Russo. I lead the Crimson Serpents. I protect this city in my own way. I will not harm you, but I will make you face yourself." He picked up the recorder and held it out. "These are the words you needed to hear." He handed it to Marcus. "Take it." Marcus shook his head. "I can't," he stumbled. Andre stood and set the recorder back on the table. He looked Marcus in the eye. "You need to say it. Look me in the eye and say it." His voice was gentle but unbreakable. Marcus's mouth felt dry. I swallowed and looked up. "I'm sorry," he said in a trembling voice. "I'm sorry for what I did. I was wrong." His head bowed, and he closed his eyes. Andre nodded. "Good," he said. "Now, promise me you will learn. Promise me you will treat every person with respect, not because they owe it to you, but because you owe it to them." His eyes held Marcus's. Marcus lifted his head. His eyes were wet. He spoke with quiet force. "Promise." He looked up at Andre. "I promise I will change." Andre's shoulders relaxed. He stepped back. The other masked figures lowered their cases. They slid off their gloves and sat down in chairs. The warehouse lights shone dim. They all felt less threatening now. Andre reached into his pocket and pulled out a sheet of paper. He laid it on the table. Marcus leaned forward to read it. It was a list of community groups, diversity workshops, local shelters, and volunteer centers. Andre had taken the time to find ways Marcus could learn and give back. "You'll start here," Andre said. "And when you're ready, come back and tell me how it went." He removed his mask completely and placed it on the table. "I want proof that you mean it." Marcus nodded, his chest tight with gratitude and shame. He reached out and touched the mask. He felt the smooth surface. He felt the weight of it. He looked at Andre. "Thank you," he said simply. Andre smiled, a real gentle smile. "You're welcome," he said. "Now go. Keep your promise." He backed away toward the warehouse door. The other members stood and moved to the door too. Marcus stood and crossed to the table, picked up the recorder, hit stop, and unplugged it. Slid it into his pocket. He folded the list of organizations and put it in his jacket. He turned to Andre. "I will," he said. His voice was steady now, "I promise." Andre nodded once more, then turned and walked out the door. The night air welcomed him as he stepped outside. Marcus followed, watching him disappear into the darkness. The warehouse door closed behind him with a soft click. Marcus stood alone in the moonlit lot. He pressed the recorder, listening to silence. Thought of the promise he had made. Thought of the life he would lead from this night forward. He felt fear and hope mixed together in his heart. He walked to his car without looking back. As he drove home, he kept glancing at the list in his pocket. He thought of the workshops and the shelters. He thought of the families he would meet. He thought of the lessons he would learn and how he would share them with others. He whispered into the empty car, "Respect is earned." And he repeated it until it became a part of him. When he reached his apartment, he sat at his small kitchen table and spread out the list. He drank a glass of water and looked at the first organization, picked up his phone and typed a message. "I would like to volunteer. Please tell me how I can help." Press send. He felt a small spark of light inside him. It was the beginning of change. And tonight, in a quiet warehouse, Marcus Thompson had learned that words can hurt. But words can also heal, in that respect, once taken away, can be rebuilt, brick by brick, if a man chooses to earn it. Marcus woke early the next morning with a light in his chest he had not felt in a long time. The sunrise glowed soft and golden through his curtains. He sat on the edge of his bed, holding the list of organizations Andre had given him. His heart thumped with nervous hope. Today he would keep his promise. He dressed in simple clothes, a clean shirt and jeans. He thought of the crushed car and the smashed windows, but those images felt distant now. What mattered was what lay before him. He grabbed his keys and stepped outside. The air was fresh with morning promise. His first stop was the community center on Oak Street. He arrived a few minutes early. The building looked worn but welcoming. A green sign read Oak Street Community Outreach. He hesitated at the door, then took a deep breath and walked in. The receptionist greeted him with a smile. "Can I help you?" she asked. Marcus gave her his name and said, "I'm here to volunteer." He handed her the folded list. She scanned it, nodded, and introduced herself as Alina. She led him down a hallway to a bright room lined with shelves full of food and clothing donations. "We help families in need," she said. "Today we pack care boxes. Would you like to join us?" He nodded. Alina showed him a workstation with empty cardboard boxes and a list of items to include rice, canned beans, toothbrushes, soap, and a note of encouragement. He began to pack items carefully, each one a promise to someone who needed help. He worked. He saw how people's lives could change with small acts of kindness. He placed a toothbrush in the box and wrote "You matter" on the little note. His hand shook when he wrote it, and he smiled. A woman with 2 young children approached, asking for more rice. Marcus guided her to the shelf and helped her choose. He handed her the rice bag and said, "Here you go. Take care." Eyes met his and she said, "Thank you." Her children waved shyly. Marcus watched them leave with their boxes. He felt warmth spread through him. He packed box after box, working alongside volunteers who laughed and chatted. He listened to their stories: a man who had once been homeless, a teenager who joined to earn service hours, an elderly volunteer who said helping made her days brighter. Marcus realized he had only known one world before: the polished showroom, the shine of new cars, the rush of a sale. Now, he saw another world, a world of quiet needs and gentle hearts. By midday, they had packed 100 boxes. Elena thanked everyone. She turned to Marcus. "You did a great job today." He smiled and said, "I'm grateful for the chance." He meant it. Next on the list was the diversity workshop at the city library. He arrived just as a small group gathered in a circle of chairs. A facilitator named Ramon spoke about bias. In respect, he asked each person to share a time they felt judged. When it was Marcus's turn, he took a deep breath and spoke honestly. "I judged someone because of his skin color," he said. "I assumed he didn't belong in my world. I was wrong." He told them about the slap, the broken car, and the warehouse meeting. He told them about Dante Russo and the promise he made. His voice faltered at times, but he kept going. When he finished, the room was quiet. Then people nodded, and someone said, "Thank you for sharing." That takes courage. Marcus felt tears prick his eyes. He nodded back and said, "I want to change." They broke for lunch, and he spoke with others about how to spot hidden bias and how to build respect. He felt more open than he ever had. His final stop was the homeless shelter near the river. He brought extra boxes of care items from the community center. He entered and was greeted by a man named Paul. Paul showed him the common room, where people sat or napped on mats. Marcus offered the boxes to those who needed them. He knelt beside a sleeping figure and gently placed a blanket over him. The man stirred and smiled. "Thank you," he mumbled. Marcus whispered, "You're welcome," and moved on. In the evening, Marcus sat on a bench outside the shelter. He watched the sky shift from pink to deep blue. He thought of Andre Dante, Rousseau, ruthless boss and secret protector. He wondered if Andre rested, or if he watched over the city through the night. He hoped Andre could see his efforts and believe he meant his promise. Marcus reached into his pocket and pulled out his phone. He typed a message to the unknown number. "I have served today. I will continue. Thank you for the lesson." Hesitated, then hit send. He did not expect a reply, but he needed to tell someone that he was changing as he walked home. He noticed small acts of kindness around him: a neighbor helping another carry groceries, a taxi driver stopping to help, a lost tourist, a boy picking up litter in the park. He realized respect was not one grand gesture, but many small ones. And respect came from seeing another person as worthy, no matter their skin, their job, or their past. Back in his apartment, Marcus cleaned the list and set it by his bed. He felt tired but hopeful. He lay down and stared at the ceiling. He thought of how far he had come from a man who slapped a customer in anger to a man who spent his day helping strangers. He felt a quiet pride that rose from the right place in his heart. He closed his eyes and dreamed of tomorrow's work. He would visit the youth center, help kids with homework, and listen to their hopes. He would seek out more chances to learn and to serve. Ace has prejudice each time it tried to rise in him. Ace had keep his promise to treat every person with respect. Meanwhile, on the other side of the city, Andre stood on a rooftop overlooking the streets. He wore his plain clothes, his mask hanging from his neck. He watched the lights of homes and shops. He smiled softly, taught a lesson without violence. He had given a man a chance to rebuild what he broke. That was true power. Andre slipped his mask back on and turned away. He disappeared down the fire escape and into the night. His work as Dante Russo would continue, protecting his city in shadows. But now, Marcus Thompson would be part of that protection. Respect, once restored, would ripple outward in ways neither man could yet measure. And so, the story ended with two men changed, one who learned to earn respect, and one who showed its true value. The city moved on, unaware of the silent battle fought in a warehouse or the promise kept in small acts of kindness. But for Marcus and Dante, The night marked a new beginning, a life guided by respect, built on choices, and rooted in the simple truth that every person deserves dignity.